Hi everyone, my name is Somu Maiti. Currently, I am working as a lead network analyst at Data Space Security Private Limited. I have completed my master's in network administration. I have a vast knowledge of hardware and networking troubleshooting, and I have also done a diploma in the network and the CCNA. So today's session is about IP address switching. So let's not waste any more time and start the session. Okay. So uh, so today I will discuss about IP address. So what is IP address? A network address is an identifier for a node for network interface of a telecommunications network. So, network addresses are often designed to be unique across the network, although some networks allow for local or private address that may not be unique. So, every IP address has to be unique for access the internet. So, there are two types of addresses like physical address. We can also say that a hardware address or MAC address, also machine address. Okay. So, next is logical address or IP address. So, how can I check our systems? Hardware address. So go to Windows search options and write the command cmd, then go to command prompt, and there we have to write the get mac, then press enter. Where I will get the MAC address also. So their MAC address is six parts. So there is a MAC address. The MAC address is six parts, and every part had two digits. So total digit each, six multiplied to equal to 12 digit number. So okay, and the number is the combinations of letter and number. So go to the MAC address. So a MAC address is embedded in NIC. The full form of NIC is a network interface card. So where MAC address is embedded. Next, it operates at the data link layer of the OSI model. Next, it is a 12-digit hexadecimal number. The hexadecimal number because the number is the combinations of letter and number, and it is made up of numbers from 0 to 9 or letters from A to A. Next, it can be written as triple M, MM, and triple SSS, or it can be written as MMM and triple SSS. So it is divided into two parts. Like first part is manufacturer ID. So there is first three parts. The first three parts we can call as manufacturer ID, and last three parts we can call as serial number of the NIC. Next, so there is a MAC address. The full form of MAC is Media Access Control Address. So this is a 48 bits address also, and there is also IP address. Next, so IP address there is two version. Okay, so in IP address there is two version, IPv4 and IPv6. The full form of IPv4 is Internet Protocol version 4, and the full form of IPv6 is Internet Protocol version 6. So there are the process of assigning IP address. So there is also two process of assigning IP address. So static IP address and dynamic IP address. Static means static IP address are assigned to the device on the network manually. So we can set manually IP address in systems. So these IP address remains allocated for the specific devices for a longer time until we manually change the static IP address. It remains same. Next is dynamic IP address. So it is assigned to the devices automatically without any manual effort. So the most common protocol is used for dynamic IP address is DHCP. So DHCP is a protocol, and the full form of DHCP is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So through DHCP, this grants IP address to the host on least time basis. So let's move to the practical. So there is a Windows search options. So there we have to type the control panel. So go to the control panel application, and there is options network and sharing center. So click on it and go to the internet and go to the properties. So there is options internet protocol version 4. So click on it and go to properties. So there is two options, obtain an IP address automatically. So these options is basically for DHCP, and the next options is for static IP only. So there for these options we can add IP address, subnet mask, default gateway manually. Okay. So next, so there is a types of IP address. The first one is unicast address. So it means unicast means one-to-one communications. Okay. So when a data packet is sent from a host with destination address, who is represent a single host, a unicast communication takes place. Unicast IP address is an IP address which uniquely identifies a host in a particular network. When we send up when we send our data to a particular network, so we can use our unicast address. Next is multicast IP address. So what is multicast? Multicast means one to many communication. When a data packet is sent from a host to a group of hosts, a multicast communication takes place. Okay, so it belongs to class D IP address. So there is also class D. So class D is for multicasting also. This address defined in address for a group, and a system of in a multicast network can have more than one class D multicast address. Next, next is broadcast address. The broadcast means one to one communication. So it allows a data packet to be sent to all the machines on a given network. Data packet is broadcasted only at local level and not a global level. Okay. So using a broadcast address, a packet can be sent to the entire subnet using a private IP address space. So through a private IP address, we can do our broadcast. Okay. So through a public IP address, we can only unicast or multicast. Next, we'll discuss about IPv4 address. So an IPv4 address, the full form of IPv4 address is Internet Protocol version 4. Okay. So an IPv4 address is divided into 4-bit, 8-bit parts. So called octets. So there let's do the example. The example is 192.168 uh, 10.10. Okay, so there is a four parts, so every part has 8 bits, so we can call as octet. So there are four octet, so it is separated by a dot. So every four parts is separated by a dot, and it is represented by a decimal number. So IPv4 provides 4.3 billion IP address. Okay, but our population is now 8 billion IP at 8 billion. Okay, so there is a okay, an octet range from 80 to 81 binary numbers or 0 to 255 decimal numbers. So there is a calculation. Okay, how can I get 80 to 81? The numbers is from 0 to 255. Okay, so first you have to calculation 0 multiply 2 to the power 7 plus 0 multiply 2 to the power 6 plus 0 multiply 2 to the power 5, then 0 multiplied to the power 4 plus 0 multiply 2 to the power 3 plus 0 multiplied 2 to the power 2 plus 0 multiply 2 to the power 1 plus 0 multiply 2 to the power 0. So there is 8 0. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. So there is 8 0. So the value will be 0 multiply that 2 to the power 7 value will be 128 plus 0 multiply 64 plus 0 multiply 32 plus 0 multiply 16 plus 0 multiply 8 plus 0 multiply 4 plus 0 multiply 2 plus, and the value of 2 to the power 0 will be 1. 0 multiply 1. So the value will be so every part is multiplication with 0. So every part will be the total value will be 0. Okay, but the value is for 80. But when it will be 81, the value will be changed. Okay. Next, the value will be 1 multiply 2 to the power 7 plus 1 multiply 2 to the power 6 plus 1 multiply 2 to the power 5 plus 1 multiply 2 to the power 4 plus 1 multiply 2 to the power 3 plus 1 multiply 2 to the power 2 plus 1 multiply 2 to the power 0. Okay, so there is 8 1 1 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and plus 1 multiply 2 to the power 0. So the value will be uh, so the value will be 1 multiply 128 plus 1 multiply 64 plus 1 multiply 32 plus 1 multiply 16 plus 1 multiply 8 plus 1 multiply 4 plus 1 multiply 2 plus 1 multiply 1. So the value will be 255. So there is a calculation that we can convert from octet to binary. Okay. So our typical IPv4 address can be like this. So this is a IP address example. So there are also classification of IPv4 address. So IPv4 systems is divided into a well-specified hierarchy or 5 classes. So the first octet of an IP address determines the class of IP address. So there are 5 classes: class A, class B, class C, class D, and class E. So every class has a value. So class A value is a 0 to 127. This is a range for class A, and for class B the range is 128 to 191, and for class C the range is 192 to 223, and for class D the range is 224 to 239, and for class E the range is 240 to 255. So, how can I identify the which class of the IP address? So, let's move to the example. The example is 192.168.10.10. So, first we have to choose the first octet 192. So, 192. So, there is a address. So, in this range, so this is a class C IP. Okay. So, this is a class C IP. Next, we will discuss about class A. Okay, class A IP address. So in class A address, the first octet is the network ID, and the rest of the 3 octets are used to assign host ID. So the address 0 and 127 are not used to assign network ID. So in class A address, total number of networks are 126, because so when the we have also read that the class A range is 0 to 127 means the address will be 128. So there 0 and 127 are not used. So 128 minus 2 equal to 126. So the networks are 126, and it supports 1 crore 67 lakhs 77,214 host ID per network. So class A used for large scale organizations. Okay, because in one network there are 1 crore 67 lakhs IP. So class A used for large scale organizations, and the subnet mask of class A is 255.0.0.0, because the first octet is the network ID. So network ID gives the highest value 255, and the host ID that's for 0. So there is a subnet mask 255.0.0.0, and the decimal address range is 1 to 126. Next, class B. So what is class B? In class B address, the first two octets from the network ID and the last two octets are used to assign host ID. So class B address support maximum 16,384 network ID and 65,534 host per networks. So class B used for host addressing, and there the subnet mask of class B is, so there is also two network ID. So there is 255 this is for network ID, and last two 0 and 0 for host ID. And there the decimal address range is 128 to 191. Next, about we will discuss about class C. So the first three octets in class C address are used for network ID, while the final octet used for host ID. So in class C address, maximum 20 lakhs 97,152 network supports and 254 hosts per network. Because so in class the is octet range is 0 to 255. So 0 is only so 0 to 255 is total is 256, but 0 is for network ID and 255 is for broadcast ID. So we can use two ID through for network access. So 256 minus 2 equal to 254 for host per network. So class C used for small organizations, class C used for host addressing. And next, the class C submarks is so there is also three network ID, three octets. So there is 3255 and dot 0 for host. And there is also a decimal address range 192 to 223. And next, about class D. So what is class D? So class D address was created to enable multicasting in an IP address. So class D is reserved for multicasting. So we have already read that multicasting means one to many communications. Okay. So there is also IP address reserved for multicasting, and there is no network ID and host ID, so there is no subnet mask. And the decimal address range of the class D is 224 to 239. Next, about class E. So a class E address has been defined. The Internet Engineering Task Force IETF reserves these addresses for its own research. So class E is reserved for research and development. So IP address is reserved for R&D. R means research and D for development. And there is also no network ID and host ID. So there is no subnet mask. And there is a decimal address range 242 to 55. So this is about IPv4 address.
Somo,
Next, we will discuss about IPv4 address.
Somo, sorry to interrupt you. There is few question from audience side. Uh, so one question is you can see what is difference between wildcard marks and subnetting. I confused when attend MCQ pattern questions.
So wildcard mask in OSPF. Okay. So OSPF in advanced networking, when we'll do about dynamic routing protocol. So there is a wildcard mask. So wildcard mask we can use in dynamic routing protocol OSPF. Okay. So wildcard mask is a calculation like let's move to the notepad. So we have to know about IP address also. So class A default submask is 255.0.0. Okay. So when we class A submask is 255.0.0.0. So there is a class A subnet mask, default subnet mask. Okay. So there when we'll discuss about wildcard mask. So the wildcard mask value of the value of class A will be there's a we have to subtract from 255.255.255.255 minus 255.0.0.0. So the value will be 0.255.255.255. The wildcard mask value will be class 0.255.255.255 for class A default subnet mask. Okay.
Uh, Next question is, one octet means 8 bit.
Yes, one octet means 8 bit.
And next question is, class D IP address used in IoT device.
Yes, sorry. Class
Which
D
is
actually
class D
actually
IP addresses?
Class D IP actually used for router protocol. Okay, so Class D only used for multicasting address, multicasting for. So there are multiple protocol in routers like OSPF, EIGRP, RIP. So there we can use for protocol only for communications purpose. Okay. So next
Please
we'll
continue.
okay. Next we'll discuss about IPv6 address. The full form of IPv6 is Internet Protocol version 6. So an IPv6 address is 128 bits in length and consists of 8. So in IPv4 we also read that there are 4 part but there is 8 part. Okay. And in IPv4 there is a 8 bit in okay in each part, so there is 16 part, so there was 4 multiply 8 equal to 32 address, 32 bit. So in IPv4 there is 32 bits address, but in IPv6 there is IP address 16 multiply 8 equal to 120 bits address. Okay. And there is a dot and there is a colon. Okay. And each field must contain a hexadecimal number in IPv6, but in IPv4 there was a decimal number. And IPv6 is a network layer protocol which allows communication and data transfer to take place over the network. Next, we will discuss about private IP and public IP. Okay, so what is private IP? So this is used for a LAN or network. Okay, for office purposes, we can use private IP. So it is not recognized over internet. We can only connect in office premises only. So through private IP, we cannot access the internet, and the IP address will be unique only in same LAN. And there, the private IP is only free of charge. There is no cost, and the range we can use only class A, class B, and class C. So the private IP range in class A is 10.0.0 to 10.255.255.255, and in class B the private IP range is 172.16.0.0 to 172.31.255.255, and in class C the private IP range is 192 to 168.0.0 to 192.168.255.255. Next is public IP. So public IP used for public network only, and this is recognized over internet. Through public IP we can access our internet, and that's why this is unique in globally. And this is for cost associated with using public IP. And there is also range in class A, class B, and class C. So in class A the range is 1.0.0.0 to 9.255.255.255, and there is a gap between these because the 10 range IP is only used for private IP. So there is also start from 11.0.0 to 126.255.255.255. And in class B 128.0.0 to 172.15.255.255. So there is also gap between two addresses, like 15 there is a end of 15 and there is a starting of 32, because there is a range also 172.16.0.0 to 172.31.255.255. So the IP address will be in private IP 172.32.0.0 to 191.255.255.255. And in class C the public IP range is 192.0.0.0 to 192.167.255.255 and 192.169.0.0.2 223.255.255.255. Next, we will discuss about subnet mask. So, what is subnet mask? Actually, subnet mask define which part is for network ID and which part is host ID. So every device has an IP address with two pieces, the client or host address and the server or network address. So IP addresses are either configured by a DHCP server or manually configured. So when we can manually configure, so we can say as a static IP address. So the subnet mask splits the IP address into the host and network address. So thereby defining which parts of the IP address belongs to the network. The subnet mask is very much important for when we will do our subnetting. Okay. So a subnet mask is also a 32-bit number created by a settings host bits as zeros and settings network bits to all ones. So that's why the when we will do our network bit, the it will carry the 255 hash value, and in this way the subnet mask separates the IP address into the network and host address. Next term is Apipa. What is Apipa? So the full form of Apipa is automatic private IP addressing. So it is a features of OS and it is only applicable for Windows OS, and it provides IP address dynamically to the client computers when there is no DHCP server in the network. When devices when DHCP server, when there is no DHCP server or there is a problem in DHCP server, so their Apipa will become. And the Apiva range in class B address, the Apiva range is 169.254.0.1 to 169.254.255.255. Next term is loopback address. So what is loopback address? A loopback address has been built into the IP domain system in order to allow for a device to send and receive its own data packets. So loopback address can be useful in various kinds of analysis like testing and debugging. So through loopback address, we can check our NIC card. Like go to Windows search options and write CMD and go to command prompt and write on it ping space. The loopback address range is 127.0.0.1 to 127.255.255.255. So any kinds of address you can put 127.0.0.1, then enter. So the reply is coming. So the packets sent for is 4, so loss 0 means the success is 100%. So our NIC card is okay. So this is for IP address. So next we will go to Vlan switching. Okay. So this is a switching part because VLAN we can create only in switch. Okay. So the full form of VLAN is virtual local area network. So VLAN is a method of creating a multiple logical LAN over a single physical LAN connected with a switch. So in a single switch we can create 1 to 1005 VLAN, but we can create VLAN from 2 to 1001 manually. Okay. So we cannot create VLAN 1 because it is already present in a switch by default. Okay. So it is when known as administrative or native VLAN. So VLAN provides layer 2 security means, so layer 2 means data link layer. In data link layer, the hardware devices is a switch. So that's why it is called VLAN provides layer 2 security, and VLAN can be configured on manageable switch. Okay. So next go to network management using VLAN. So it can define a broadcast domain in layer 2. Okay, so we can define our broadcast domain through VLAN. A group of users who need high security can be put into a VLAN so that an user outside of the VLAN cannot communicate with them. Okay, so as a logical grouping of user by functions, VLAN can be considered independent from their physical locations. So through VLAN we cannot connect any other department of the college or universities. Okay, so there is also a VLAN membership. So there are three types of VLAN membership. First one is static, and second one is dynamic, and last one is voice VLAN. The first one is static. So VLAN is created based on port is known as static VLAN. Next, dynamic. So VLAN assigned based on hardware address into a database is called a dynamic VLAN. Next is a voice VLAN. It permits the switch ports to carry voice traffic with a layer through IP precedence and layer 2 class of service. So through class of service, the IP phone will work through voice VLAN. Next, we will discuss about static VLAN. So static VLANs are based on port number. So administrators manually assign a port on a switch to a VLAN. So that's why the static VLAN also called as port based VLAN. So one port can be member of only one VLAN. Next is a dynamic VLAN. So dynamic VLAN are based on port MAC address PC, and a switch automatically assigns the port to a VLAN. So each port can be member of multiple VLAN. So dynamic VLAN needs VLAN management policy server BMPS. Okay. Next is a voice VLAN. What is voice VLAN? So it enables access port to carry voice traffic from IP phone. So phones segmented in separate logical network. It provides network segmentation and control. Okay, so it allows administratively to create and enforce QoS, quality of service. So through quality of service, we can use a voice VLAN. So through voice VLAN, we can manage our IP phone in our company or IT sector. So next is VLAN range. So 0, 0 and 4095 is reserved for system use only, and 1 is for Cisco default or native VLAN. Okay, so there is by default. So we can also call it as administrative VLAN. Next, 2 to 1001. This is for Ethernet VLAN. That's we can manually create VLAN. Okay. Next is 1002 to 1005. This is for Cisco default for FDDI and token ring. Next, 1006 to 4094 for Ethernet VLANs only, unusable on specially legacy platform. Next, there is a types of ports, like two types of ports, like access port and trunk port. The first is access port. So the port is used to connect end devices like PCs, laptop, etc. And that this type of port can be part of one VLAN. Next is trunk port. So what is trunk port? The trunk port supports only the tag frames. Okay, the frame means in data link layer we have also read that the PDU, the protocol data unit of data link layer, its name is frames. So the trunk port supports only the tag frames, and the trunk port allows us to switch multiple VLANs, and it is used basically to connect between switches. A trunk port has more than one VLAN setup on the interface. Next, it offers higher bandwidth and lower latency than access port. Next, we will discuss about advantages of VLAN. So, what is the advantage of VLAN? First one is it solves a broadcast problem. So, through this VLAN, we can solve our broadcast. Next, VLAN reduces the size of broadcast domains. We can break the broadcast domains and reduce its small parts. And VLAN allows you to add on additional layer of security. Okay, so we can keep host separated by VLAN. Next, it enhances security by creating a virtual boundary. Next, it improves bandwidth performance because it gives a extra layer of security. So that's why it's improved bandwidth performance. Next is BTP. The full form of BTP is Virtual Trunking Protocol, and the protocol is used to share VLAN database or VLAN information between multiple switches connected in a network. Okay, so there is also BTP operation mode. So there is three types of BTP operation mode. There is also a server mode, and client mode, and transparent mode. So what is server mode? The switch operating in this mode allows adding, modifying, and deleting VLAN database. So it can also share its own database. So that's why this is called as a server mode. Next, client mode. The switch operating in this mode only can access VLAN information. So in this mode, VLAN information from server mode switch. So they are not allowed to add, modify, and delete VLAN information. Next is transparent mode. So the switch operating in this mode allows you to passing of VLAN information from server mode switch to client mode switch. So we can create VLAN in this switch, but it will not share its VLAN database with others. So that's why we cannot create VLAN in transparent mode, because it don't share its own database with others. Next is BTP. So benefits. What is the benefits of BTP? First one is its consistent VLAN configurations across all switches in the network. Next, its accurate tracking and monitoring of VLANs. Next, the dynamic reporting of added VLANs to all switches in the BTP domain. Next is BTP operation. So BTP advertisements are sent as multicast frames, and next BTP servers and clients are synchronized to the latest update identified revision number. Okay, so BTP advertisements are sent every 5 minutes or when there is no change. Okay, so there is when there is a change, then BTP will update. So there is a version of BTP, BT version 1 and BT version 2. So it supports only one BTP domain. Okay. So that's why it check for domain name. If matches, then only forward the BTP messages. So that because there is a only BTP domain. So if when they check for domain name, if the matches, then only forward the BTP messages. Next, it is more consistent check, and it not supported for token ring VLAN. Next, in the VT version 2, and it supports a multiple VTP domain. No, there is no check for domain name, because there is a multiple VTP domain, and it's check for consistency whenever new information is added, and it supports for token and VLAN. Okay, so that's this is the for VLAN. So next, go to the practical. Uh, so go to the practical. We have to go to the practical. So we have to go to the Cisco packet tracer. Okay, so there is an interface of Cisco packet tracer. So we there we will create a VLAN interface. VLAN. So we have to take a switch. So we have to take a switch and take PCs also, personal computer. Okay, so there is a two PCs. So we have to take also connections and go to straight cable, copper straight cable. So there is a VLAN also. So there like there is a two department in IT sector. So we can write also. This is a IT sector company, and there is a two department, like there is a sales department, and there is a administrative department, admin, and there is also we have to take VLAN ID. So VLAN is a VLAN 10, and this is for VLAN 20. Okay, so we also take IP address as well as also. So we have to take the IP address. So we have to take class a private IP address. So the address was 10 range, so 10.0.0.1, and the IP address of the this PC will be 10.0.0.2, and the IP address of this PC will be 10.0.0.3, and the IP address of the This PC will be 10.0.0.4. Okay. So you also make border also. Okay. So there is a two department. Okay. So there is a administrative department and there is a sales department. Okay. So we have to set the IP address also in all PCs. So go to PC and go to desktop and go to IP configuration and select also IP address. Okay. So select IP address. The IP address we have also read that 10.0.0.1 and as well as Subnet Mask also. Okay. And go to another PC, go to desktop, IP configuration, and set the IP address as well as subnet marks also, and go to another PC, PC2, go to desktop, and go to IP configuration and set the IP address 10.0.0.3. Go to desktop IP configurations and set the IP address 10.0.0.4. Okay. So we have also set the IP address as well as okay. So there is a sales team in two pieces and the VLAN ID is 10 and there is also admin okay administration group and there is also VLAN 20. Okay. So go to switch and write down the command. So go to switch and go to CLI mode and click on it and then press enter. So you have to there is a user execution mode, so you have to give the command enable, then we have to give the command config space t. Okay, so there is a two VLAN, so we have to set the VLAN. Okay, two VLAN, so we have to give the id VLAN 10. So there is a VLAN 10, enter, then name, we have to set the name also, name cells. Okay, then you have to exit, write down the command exit, then go to another VLAN, so name the VLAN at first VLAN 20, then we have to give the command name space admin, then exit. So we have also set the VLAN as well as a name. So go to others, go to the system also. So there is a port FA0 by 1 and FA0 by 2 and the other system is connected to the switch FA0 by 3 and FA0 by 4. So go to the command int FA0 by 1, enter. Then we have to give the command switch port mode access. Then the in FA0 by 1 in there is in VLAN 10. So we have to give the command switch port access VLAN 10. Okay, then exit. Then go to another interface FA0 by 2. So int FA0 by 2 and give the command switch port mode access. switch port access, VLAN 10 also, because the two port in same VLAN 10. So go to exit. Okay. Next, there is a admin also. So go to FA0 by 3 and FA0 by 4. So int FA0 by 3. Then also give the command switch port mode access. Then switch port access VLAN, and the VLAN is VLAN 20. Okay, so you have to give the command VLAN 20. Then exit. Then go to another interface FA0 by 4. Int FA0 by 4. Then switch port mode access. VLAN 20. Okay. So our basic configuration is done. So you have to also save the command also. So go to privilege mode. So go for that we have to go to the command int and write the command copy run start. Okay, so our configuration has been saved. So we have to ping. Okay, so our practical has successfully done or not. So we have to ping. So we can ping only our same VLAN. Okay, so there is a VLAN 10, there is 2 PC. So we can only ping our also same VLAN PC, but we cannot ping another VLAN PC because there we create a VLAN. Okay, so go to PC0 and go to command prompt and write ping space this IP address 10.0.0.2, same VLAN IP address, enter. So the reply is coming. So our practical is has been done successfully. So ping another VLAN, VLAN 20 pieces like 10.0.0.3, 10.0.0.3, enter. So let's see a request timeout. So connection is not built because we have created VLAN. So for security purpose, any department with not connected with another department. So VLAN gives our security. Okay. So there is no connection. So, let's see. Send 4, receive 0. So lost 4 means 100% loss. So go to another VLAN. So go to this PC and go to command prompt and ping same VLAN PC like 10.0.0.4, enter. So reply is coming. Okay, and we also ping our different VLAN like ping space like 10.0.0.2, 10.0.0, enter. So there is a request timeout because any other VLAN don't connect with no other VLAN. Okay, so packets there is lost 4, so there is 100% loss. So there is the end of VLAN. Okay, and hope the session was understanding, and thanks for taking part in the session. Keep learning all the future. Thank you everyone.